Hello, I'm Nick Case and welcome to Nimbee. I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of the game, what's involved, what the components are, and end up with a sample turn just to show you how things hang together. So to kick off, what do we get with our game? Well, the main component is the board in the centre here, which is split into three main sections. At the top we have the turn order table. As you can see, it's already set out with 3Bs because our sample is going to be for a 3-player game. It does play up to 4. In the centre we have the hive with our queen in the middle to kick off, although she'll be circulating around the board for the rest of the game. And at the bottom we have the meadow, which the bees fly into to enable them to fly around the path and collect the nectar from the flowers there. We have a deck of cards here which contain the flower cards, which are valued from 2 all the way up to 10. The 10 card isn't out yet. And we also have some action cards which give you special abilities during the game. When you manage to fly all the way around and all of the flowers have been collected, the final card at the end is the end path card, and this can be either a nice lush meadow worth 14 points as we see here, or it can be a nasty old bear which is worth -7 points. So rather than rushing towards the end, in fact you've got to walk very carefully and make sure you don't end up picking him up. Each bee has their own little honeycomb, and this shows a number of things. Firstly, we have a base move of 1 at all times, and that's represented by the little honey pot here with the 1 on it, and we can add to that another 2 honey pots. So we could add that onto there, and that would enable us to move 3 moves, although these are expended after they're used. Underneath we have space for the queen bee flower cards, and these also allow additional movement. So these effectively are our player boards. Each turn starts with the queen bee, and although she's in the middle to start with, her very first turn will be to move down to here on the first round of the first turn, and from now onwards she will always move around the board. She'll never go back into the middle. The feature of the queen bee is that she blocks access to the space she's on for the other worker bees, so at least initially she won't be able to allow anyone else in a space with her. So the next in the turn order is brown, and as you can see there are 2 arrows from the meadow into the hive. Brown can't go here because the queen bee's there, so the only option brown has for its 1 movement is to move into this space here, and this is the swap space. This has got 2 functions which you can do either one but not both at the same time, and the top icons mean that the bee can swap positions with the queen bee. So brown could do that, and you take the action of the space that the queen bee was on, the new space you move into. So in this case brown could take a +1 honey pot. The other option would be that you can actually swap positions with other honeybees on the turn order. Now because brown is currently in first position and doesn't really benefit a great deal by changing turn order position, what we'll do is we'll get brown to swap with the queen bee here and take a honey pot token which goes on its piece of honeycomb, and that's the end of the brown bee's turn. Next is blue. Now blue can move either into the +1 space and share the space with the brown bee. Worker bees can share with each other, but blue cannot share with the queen bee, so it can't go there. However, blue has one other option that brown couldn't take advantage of, and that is that a worker can fly over occupied spaces directly in front of it to the next unoccupied space, and because the queen bee's there, the blue bee could actually fly if it wanted to, over the queen bee to the next unoccupied space, and that is what blue is going to do. And what this queen bee space enables a bee to do is, the queen's very happy with what you're doing, so the queen gives you the next flower along the flower path, and that in this case is this one here, which is valued at 2, and as a result it needs to go on the space here, which shows a value of 2 to 4 on the honeycomb. So we place that there, and on a future turn, if you look at see the big +1 honey there, this will act in a similar fashion to the honey pot here, in that you can add +1 onto the movement base which is there. So a future blue move could be to either move 2 spaces around the hive, or if blue was in the meadow, they could actually move 2 spaces along the flower track, but we'll come on to that. That's the end of the blue turn. The silver bee, in this instance, has even more options. It can move in and share with brown and get a honey pot. Still can't actually share with the queen. It could jump over the queen, because you can always do that, and take the next occupied space, which would repeat the move that blue took, and take this number 3 flower card here, or it could fly to the next unoccupied space, which in this case is the +1 honey pot there, and that is what silver is going to do. So silver takes the next honey pot and places it on there, which gives it more options for its next move. That's the end of that round. So we start at the front again. The queen bee then moves to the next unoccupied space, which is the swap space here, and we're off again. So brown has a choice, and brown can move 1. It could move 2 if it wanted to, but it doesn't really want to. So brown is going to move here, and it can swap positions with the queen bee. So it wants to get into the meadow as soon as possible, so it moves to that space by swapping the queen bee, and that's the end of brown's turn. Next is blue. Blue would like some honey, so it's going to move in and share with silver and take a honey pot and place it on his board. Last is silver, and silver is a bit fed up with being last. So what silver's going to do is silver's going to go here and swap its turn order. And it's going to swap its turn order with brown. So it moves to there, and when you swap, you turn over the active bee's token to show the Z side. And what that means is that no future players can swap turn order position with it on that turn. At the start of a new turn, they're all flipped over, so that wouldn't be a problem. However, because it was silver who swapped positions and swapped with brown, brown now gets another turn. It gets the position that the active bee was in. So brown has got another go now, and brown looks ahead to the meadow and can only spend 1 spot. So it's going to move into the queen bee space and take this queen bee card and place it, because it's a 3 on the 2 to 4 range here, and in future has the opportunity to spend an extra 1 on movement. And because that was the last bee's turn, silver gets turned over, and we're back to the queen bee. So the queen bee moves to the next unoccupied space, which is the queen bee action, and now the first player is the silver bee. Now it's silver's turn, and silver only has 1 additional movement, so it's a bit stuck. It can move 2, but 7 will be not a bad score. So what silver's going to do is use its 1 basic to move there, and then use its next honeypot to move into the meadow. It couldn't fly over because the meadow is always considered an occupied space. You couldn't just jump over there for one. So anyway, now silver is in the meadow and can access these flower cards. Now, it's used its honeypot, so it can only actually move one. So this is the option that it has, the only option it has. So it's going to get this flower card, it's worth 7 points, turns it over, and these are counted up at the end of the game. So that's the end of the silver bee's turn. Next is blue, and blue, if it wanted to, could move 1 plus 1 plus 1, which would be 3. But that would be 1, 2, 3. It would get in and get the 9 cards, so that's probably a good thing to do. So it uses its basic 1, it uses the card as a +1 to go there, that's discarded out of the game, and it uses its final honeypot to move into the meadow. And because blue now only has a base move of 1, it's used all its honey up, it can only take the first card, but that's a good card. It's worth 9 points, so blue is very happy with that and puts it down for end game points. So with silver with 7 and blue with 9, blue is currently in the lead. That's the end of blue's turn. Finally, it's brown's turn, and poor old brown has, by being moved to last position, has missed the boat a bit here. So it uses its 1 to hop into the meadow, and it's thinking, well, I've got 3 here, I've got my 1 plus 1 honey plus 1 for the flower cards, 3. I could go 1, 2, 3 and take 6, but I've burnt all those bonuses for the only benefit of gaining 1 point. So what brown is going to do is take the 5 and take that for end game points, and that's the end of that round. So queen bee moves on again, and now we're back to silver. Silver is completely out of bonuses, so it's going to go there and take a +1 honey. Next is blue. Blue is in a similar position, so blue's going to go there as well and take some honey. And brown is thinking, well, if I move up here, do I gain much by swapping with the queen? Is there anything much to gain here? Not a great deal. So I'm probably just as well served to get +1 as well. Now, because brown has 2 honeypots, brown is now full as far as that's concerned. So by landing on future honeypots, we're not going to add anything onto here. That's the end of that round. The queen moves on a space, and we're back to silver. Silver's now seeing a bit of an opportunity here, so silver moves forward 1, and yeah, it's a nice jump forward if he stops with the queen, so that's what they're going to do. Blue can't go there anymore, but blue could hop here for just a basic move of 1 and collect the next queen bee card, which isn't a bad thing. It's a 4, it's still in the basic 2 to 4 grid, so place it there and it gives blue a +1 movement in the future. Next is brown. Brown can either fly to the next unoccupied space, which is there, or it can hop over the queen to here. This is quite interesting. The next available card is a 6, so you think, oh, that's okay. If it had been a 2 to 4, you wouldn't be able to take it because that spot is full, but because it's 6, it falls within the 5 to 7 range, so it goes there. It will add +2 to a movement. So currently brown can move an incredible distance. It can move a base 1, +2 honeypots is 3, plus that flower card is 4, plus that flower card is 6. So it could absolutely eat up the flower path or lap around the hive very, very easily, but that's for a future move. That's the end of that turn because brown's just been. So back to the start, the queen bee moves here, blocking off the +1, and we're back to silver. Now, time to look ahead to the flower path, and what we have here is an action card as the next one to be taken, and this is quite an interesting one. 2 bees in a pod, and it lasts until the end of the game. And what it enables the holder to do is to share a space with the queen bee in future. And silver's looking at what we've got here. There's a 7, which is quite nice. It looks like brown can just gallop through and take the 14, so it's extremely unlikely silver's going to get it. So he's thinking maybe that's quite a good card to go for. So what silver's going to do is move 1 and then spend their extra honey to move 2 into the meadow. Now we've got access to the flower cards, and because it can only take 1, it can only do this, but that's exactly what they're going to do. And he's going to put it there to remind him that silver can always share with the queen bee in future, which is a handy little bonus. That's the end of silver's turn. Blue, right. Blue is, yeah, not too thrilled with this. There's no real incentive to jump forward. Be quite nice to get 7, but let's see what we can do here. So blue's just going to hop forward 1, and in order to maybe get a better position for future, I'm going to swap the turn order with silver, which means it's now silver's turn. There won't be any extra turns because blue's moved forward and silver was the next one to take a turn. So silver thinks, oh, okay, not doing particularly well. We'll move here and take a honey pot. And now we're on brown. Now brown would like to obviously get the 14, which is great, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 once brown gets into the meadow. And it's currently got 6 points. So is it possible for brown to do it? Well, yes it is. Brown could fly to the next unoccupied space, which is there for 1, which is the basic one, then move forward 1 more to get into the meadow. So let's get rid of this card, which is a +1 move. It's now in the meadow and can access the flower path, so it needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 1. If it uses the 2 honey, that'll be 2, 3, and it has a flower card that gives it +2, which is a total of 5. So by spending all of its tokens, brown can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and gets the end path card worth 14 points. So great move. If you jump over everything else, all of these cards are placed in discard, they're out of the game. And that would be the end of the first round. What then happens is the queen stays where she is, these return to face up, all of the bees return to the meadow, and you lay out another 12 cards. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then give these a shuffle up. I'll place the next one. Oh, that's a glade as well, but like I say, it could have been a nasty old bee, bear even, to steal your honey. Then you continue until all of your end path cards are used up, however long the game's going to be, and then at the end you only add up the face down cards you've collected from the meadow. The cards which are the queen bee flower cards don't count. That would be put into discard. And in this particular instance, after 1 round, brown had 19 points, blue had 9, and silver had 7. So although it was only 1 round, after 1 round, brown is in the lead with 19 points. And that is basically the game of Nimbee.